This is not a highlight video. I could not wait until Monday to talk about this. It's finally happened. After 50 consecutive sets won by Rafael Nadal, 21 consecutive matches, the King of Clay has fallen to Dominic Theim once again. I barely know where to start. Roger Federer will take over as number one in the world once again. And Theim, who I said before the clay court season, I said, guys, he's not as big a threat to Nadal as you guys think. That's what I said going into the clay court season. And then when Nadal won 6-1, 6-1, or I think it was 6-2, 6-0 in Monte Carlo, I was on my high horse. I'm like, told you guys, it's not that close. After Dominic Theim beat Nadal in Rome last season, he was the last player to beat Nadal on the clay. That started to feel like a distant memory. Nadal won at Roland Garros. One of those sets was a bagel set. And ever since then, it seemed like Nadal just was able to easily take care of business. So I came into this tournament waiting for, obviously, Del Potro to play Nadal because I thought Del Potro was probably the biggest threat to Nadal on clay. But I guess it's time to rethink that because Dominic Theim just showed a level that it would have been easy to forget that he's had, or perhaps it's the best level we've ever seen out of Dominic Theim on clay, because he, quite frankly, and in the most rudimentary sense, out-muscled and outgunned Nadal. And right now, he is the only player in the world with the ability to do that. I don't care, on clay, and you discount Federer and you discount Wawrinka. When it comes to actually outgunning Rafa Nadal on clay, there is definitely no one in the world who can do that, but Theim did it. You saw the average ground stroke speed. Theim's forehand at one point in this match, I think midway through the second set, 10 miles per hour faster than Nadal's forehand, and then on the backhand, less surprising, but it was 5 miles per hour faster than Nadal's backhand. So there are a bunch of things that Theim did well, which I'll talk about first, but definitely some things that Rafa will go back and regret about this match, and some things that he'll adjust. I'll get to that second. So I think that the pattern that really helped Theim the most and bothered Nadal the most was Theim's whipping cross-court forehand and Nadal's backhand. And you would think it would be the other way around. You would think that Nadal's whipping cross-court forehand would bother Theim's one-handed backhand. But I think the reason we were able to see that reversed is Theim did so much more on the serve and so much more on the return. For Nadal, I don't think, and I haven't seen the stats, but it seemed like, especially on big points, he didn't make enough first serves, and then Theim really did a lot on the second serve. Sometimes he would retreat, take a big cut, stand far behind the baseline, and hit an aggressive return in that sense. But more often, he would hold his ground and run around his forehand on the second serve return, or run around his backhand, hit a run around forehand on that second serve return, really taking each rally by the horns right off the bat on his terms. And then on his serve, he has a nasty kick serve. For some reason, he double faults a lot. But other than that, he has a nasty kick serve, and he was really able to play first strike tennis with that kick serve, consistently trading heavy to Nadal's backhand and then attacking to Nadal's forehand, which is probably the way to go. But he was able to hit his forehand so heavy cross-court that Nadal really wasn't able to run around it, and then had a lot of trouble breaking that pattern. And one of the things that I thought Nadal did well, or that Nadal, could have done better, was hit his backhand a little bit more aggressively. And basically, I thought that Theim was able to shake the confidence of Nadal, and that came out in his backhand, which it often does. When Nadal gets a little bit less confident, normally the forehand will sort of stay there a little bit longer at that high level, but the backhand, when he's at his best, can look great, and when his confidence is shaken, can get a lot worse. So Nadal, I don't think he was really able to break out of the pattern, the problematic pattern with Theim's cross-court forehand to his backhand. He wasn't able to hit his backhand well enough to break that pattern. He could have broken it by being able to change direction and hit his backhand down the line. He also could have broken that pattern by just hitting it a little bit heavier to the point where he would be able to maybe set up or make it a little bit tougher for Thiem to hit it back to Nadal's backhand. So that's when you see a pattern working, when someone's having trouble breaking the pattern. It's not necessarily that the pattern is so effective at face value, but how easily is an opponent able to break a pattern? The pattern of Thiem's cross-court forehand to Nadal's backhand, which would ultimately set up normally a heavy inside-out forehand by Thiem to Nadal's forehand, which oftentimes finished the point. You saw how many winners Thiem hit on his inside-out forehand because he hit it so often to Nadal's backhand. He would get Nadal leaning that way, and he would get that short ball on Nadal's backhand, and he would absolutely demolish it. Demolish an inside-out forehand. So that seemed to be the go-to pattern for Thiem. But ultimately, the serve and the return was so heavily in Thiem's favor that he really was able to generally take control of the point and never relent control of the point. And Nadal is so good at playing defense and turning it into offense, but he wasn't able to do that on his backhand wing today. Just wasn't able to do that. And I think it was because after the first set, where I thought Thiem just played such impeccable tennis in that first set, really showed off why you can make an argument that Thiem at his best, at that redlining level, and Thiem was redlining in that first set. He could not have been playing any better. Thiem can play at least with Nadal. I thought that Nadal's level actually dropped in the second set, where you would probably expect it to rise. But what I expected is that, and Nadal writes about this in his book, he writes about the fact that when you're playing Federer on grass, when Federer's playing his best, you just got to wait because you can't win. You just got to sit back, you got to maintain your level, and you got to wait until Federer's level drops. And I think that's what Nadal tried to do against Thiem today. I think that Nadal was waiting for Thiem's level to drop, and it didn't happen, and that was the number one mistake that Nadal made. On Nadal's second serve return, he was just starting the point, and Thiem was playing too well for that. Nadal needed to be more aggressive on that second serve return. He needed to start taking more risks on his backhand. And here's a comparison I also want to make about Nadal's backhand. I talked about how good a job Nishikori did of getting it to Nadal's backhand, but it didn't matter. Nadal still won the match. Obviously, Thiem did the same thing again today, doing a great job of hitting enough backhands down the line, which he said he hit more of, and hitting his forehand cross court with enough heaviness that Nadal couldn't run around it and was forced to hit backhands. The difference is with Nishikori's strength, physical strength, and his firepower, Nadal can just trade that backhand, stay in the point, be patient, just kind of play a waiting game. But Thiem seemed to be attacking Nadal's backhand trade, his pedestrian backhand trade, with an incredible ferocity and not making any errors in doing so. And that was what I believe kind of defined the match. One other point on Thiem, a refusal to defend. I saw so many times when Nadal would get Thiem in a defensive position on his backhand, instead of Thiem looping the backhand cross court, and we see how Nadal does such a good job of stepping in, taking it on the rise, either able to go angle cross court or drive it down the line. Instead of Thiem hitting that looping defensive backhand cross court, he's just like, you know what? I'm going to drive the backhand. I'm either going to drive the backhand up the line, which is a really difficult shot, but Thiem was just making it today, or I'll just drive the backhand back up the middle at Nadal's feet. A refusal to defend. Thiem talked about after the match. He said, look, I just decided I need to play better shots against Nadal. I need to play more aggressive. And oftentimes that's going to lead to errors. Today, it didn't. And I've complained in the past about Thiem making too many errors on clay. And today was just not one of those days. It just wasn't happening. So I know I just came at you with almost like a stream of consciousness, tons of thoughts there. In the first set, Nadal made two very, very crucial errors. So I ultimately think that in the first set, the quality of play was a little bit higher than it was in the second set. I thought Thiem was redlining, but Nadal was also playing at a really, really high level. The thing is, for Nadal, there were two crucial points that he lost in that first set that I think he's going to look back at. And I think I'll look back at them in Monday Match Analysis. Thiem, in the first, he broke Nadal's serve twice in that first set. The first time, he made a forehand error, mid-court forehand error, where you expect Nadal to put it away. Thiem guesses right, and Nadal nets it. Then, in the next game, Nadal has an overhead. Thiem guesses right, and Nadal nets it. And then one more time, that game's in deuce. And this, I believe, is on break point. Thiem guesses correctly on a ball that's so short, so simple for Nadal, that you would think Nadal's going to put it away, and Thiem has to guess. And once again, Thiem guesses right, and Nadal nets it. So I think Nadal's going to look back at those 3 points, and those are going to stand out. When a player guesses right, you just got to hit the ball anyway. And Nadal seemed to freeze up and, just almost he just panicked when he saw that Thiem guessed the right direction on 3 occasions and netted all 3 balls. So that was ultimately in a first set that Nadal played pretty well. That was pretty much the difference if you look at the big points. And then in the second set, lots more breaks of serves. Nadal did not remain errorless. 2 backhand errors at 3-all. Thiem gets the break. And then, was that the last break at 3-all? It might have been. Normally, I'm going to go back and I'm going to watch this again. And what that allows me to do when I go back and rewatch matches, I'm able to magnify the big moments. In hindsight, you can get an even better grasp of what the big moments were. In that first set, those 3 points stood out to me. In the second set, there was so much going on, so much chaos that it was harder to keep track of. But I'm going to go back and check that out. Ultimately, I think there's one more point I'm going to make, and that is the Madrid clay court is by far the best clay court for Dominic Theim to execute the game plan that he just executed, and that is that all-out aggression and ultimately out-hitting Nadal and trying to play pretty much first-strike tennis, even on a clay court, a strategy that's more known as like a grass court strategy. But I think that Madrid is going to be the easiest for that. Rome is also, I believe, on the faster end of clay courts, not as fast as Madrid. But Roland Garros and Monte Carlo are probably, in my estimation, both slower than Rome and Madrid. So as the gap shrinks between Nadal and Thiem, and I still think that gap exists because Thiem hasn't been able to show that he can play at this high level with consistency against Nadal. He just hasn't. He has 2 wins, but in simple terms, Thiem, this level is not his regular level, whether you like it or not. I do think that as that gap shrinks between Nadal and Thiem, we could see a difference between Thiem's ability to be successful in Rome and Madrid versus Thiem's ability to be successful on slower clay courts like Roland Garros and Monte Carlo. So we'll look out for that. Disappointed that Del Potro didn't make the quarterfinals to play Nadal or to play Thiem because ultimately I wanted to see Del Potro play Nadal, but it looks like we might have to wait for that. But let's see what Thiem can do. Probably when it's all said and done, Zverev is playing, I'll say, the second best tennis here at Rome or at Madrid now that Nadal is out. And now that Thiem has defeated Nadal, I'll say Thiem is playing the best tennis with what we just saw. So perhaps This is between Zverev and Thiem again. Let me know your thoughts. I know this was sort of rambling, but I just needed to lay this all out here after a match like that. Hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time. By the way, Monday Match Analysis, subscribe. Look for that show every Monday, 20 minutes, in-depth tennis analysis. See you next time.